Hello listeners, welcome to another insightful episode of our program series, Policy Formulation and Economic Development on Amorgate Radio Communications. I am your host, Titilola Ogushono. Last episode, we started our discussion on the stages of public policy formulation. We established the first stage, as problem identification and agenda setting. We said the first stage in formulating the policy is the stage of actually articulating, identifying exactly, capturing accurately what the problem or the challenges are. We went ahead to discuss the tools and methods of problem identification and assessment. We started with the first one. We said the root cause analysis, RCA. Furthermore, under the root cause analysis, we explained one of the most widely used techniques, and that was the 5 whys. Okay, I said, look, before you ask 1, 2, 3 whys, you'll be able to know what the root cause is. You don't talk about the effect or the outcomes of a problem. You need to get to the root cause of the problem so that you can provide adequate solutions. And so one of the techniques that has been used widely, so easy to use, is the 5 whys. And we said one of the advantages of the 5 whys is that it helps to eliminate assumptions. So, for instance, I gave a very simple illustration that if I could not honor my postgraduate admission in the U.S., the first thing I want to do is to ask me why. Why didn't you honor the postgraduate admission? And I'd say, okay, I couldn't meet up with the payment deadline. So the second why didn't you meet up with the payment deadline? And I said I could just give you a simple answer to say, because of foreign exchange, the exchange rate volatility. So, that was just 2 whys. You already know what the problem is. Oh, it's a problem of exchange rate fluctuations, exchange rate volatility. So, and it's a simple technique, but has been used over time to get to the root cause of a problem. Okay, so today we'll look at another technique that is being used, that is one of the techniques of problem identification, and that is change analysis, or what we call event analysis. This change analysis or event analysis is another method of conducting root cause analysis, RCA. Okay, this is when one conducts a detailed analysis of changes leading up to an event. So what this does is that it helps to gain more historical background to the problem. So rather than concentrating on the specific day a problem occurred, so if there's a spike, in inflation rate, or if the problem at that particular point is an increase in death rate or mortality rate. So instead of focusing on the month or the period in which the problem occurred in terms of an increase in mortality rate and increase in death rate, so what this method does is, consider that the day the problem broke out, you are going to evaluate the chains of events that occurred before that particular time. So if something broke out, for instance, in the first week of June 2024, whether concentrating efforts on what could have happened in the month of June, you are looking at the effect, what happened, in that particular economy last month. You want to look at what happened, from April. Not just May. You want to look at April, May. So the chains of events, investigating the chains of events up to the period where the problem became very, obvious. It will help you to get to the root cause of the problem. An increase in death rate. The cause of that could actually be, maybe an increase in environmental pollution. It could be an increase in poverty level. So what that does for you is it makes you dig deeper, and that's what you do. And this is what policymakers will do when you want to use the RCA, using this technique, to provide solution. Remember, this is one of the techniques of problem identification and agenda setting. And this method become very applicable, to cases where in an economy there are major changes. Okay, if you have, introduced fiscal policy measures, you have introduced monetary policy measures, you have introduced, a lot of, maybe financial policies. You have introduced environmental policies that are changing a lot of things in the economy. So when these occurs in the economy, these, change analysis, event analysis becomes a very critical, useful tool in getting to the root cause of any problem. And when you are even analyzing, identifying what the problem is, you cannot take away the risk element, because we talk about systematic risk and unsystematic risk. There are risks that you cannot control, as a government. There are risks that the economy, the government has no control about. So you need to, at this stage, at this problem identification, using your change analysis or event analysis technique would help to discover strategies for risk identification and also overall risk management, because it's going to unravel the various risks embedded in an economy, because you are looking at change of events. So you're going to be looking at it. What are the risks? Are there, are there political risk element there? Are there economic risk element? And all of those things. So this change analysis, event analysis is a very useful tool or technique in conducting, identifying risk in an economy. Identifying the problem in an economy, which is the first stage of public policy formulation. Are there other tools and methods of problem identification and assessment? Yes, there are a whole lot of others, but I'll mention just one or two more, and we'll talk about PESTLE, the PESTLE, the popular PESTLE. I'm sure a lot of you would have heard about this. Even at the micro level, it's used by organizations for making corporate decisions, investment decisions, long-term projections. The PESTLE is a very good framework for analyzing key factors of the external environment of the policy. Now you want to introduce a policy. Remember, the policies, public policies are formulated to solve identified challenges, okay, or to latch on to opportunities in the economy, okay. So if you talk about PESTLE, the P stands for the political, E for economic, the S for social-cultural, the T for technological, the L for legal, and the E for environmental. So when you are coming up and identifying any problem, you want to look at this factor to know which of these factors has a major role to play in the issue at hand. So if an initially identified challenge issue in the economy is that you have noticed an increase in the level of unemployment rate in a particular economy. Now, you look at it, yes, there is a spiral. What percentage? Is it a 20%? Is it a 30%? I want to start identifying what the root cause is. Why do we have 20%, 30 or 50% increase in unemployment rate in an economy? Now, this comes in handy, the personal analysis, because the first thing you're going to be asking yourself is the first P. What are the political factors responsible for the rise in unemployment rate? And political factors, you are going deeply to be asking questions like, are there tax issues? The rise in unemployment rate, does it have a direct correlation with the level with tax issues? Is that issue of tax multiplicity, where people keep complaining of being double taxed, okay, multiple taxes from the state, from the local, from the central government, the federal government, as the case may be. So look at it. You are talking about unemployment rate. So you can't just take it in isolation. You have to start digging deep to look at the political issues. Now, is it even an issue of political instability? Does it have anything to do with the level of unemployment? You're trying to dig deeper to look at what the issues are. Do you even have fiscal policy initiatives, that is affecting the rate of unemployment? And you're even talking about economic factors. You're talking about the monetary policy instruments, the monetary policies. What impact do they have on the level of unemployment in the country? You want to know the impact these policies have. Let's even talk about the NPR. If there's an increase in NPR rate, that means those investing in the manufacturing sector, those investing in other sector, the banking sector, those investing, in the SMEs, entrepreneurs. If the interest rate on loan is going to, it's going to be a disincentive. People don't want to invest. And when people do not invest, definitely it's going to affect the employment level, output level. Because when output level falls, that means, you can't even employ more. And that's the things again. Economic factors, they tend to be more financial in nature. You want to look at inflationary rates. So is the level of inflation in the economy high? So even when you identify what the problem, the problem is or what the problems are, you cannot just take it in isolation. You need to know this is the first stage. That's why you have to identify what the problem really are before you talk of policy formulation, which is the second stage. In fact, at this point, you also look at the free trade dispute. That's the free trade dispute, international trade issues, because you are going to trade with the rest of the world. These even foreign exchange issues. Do you have foreign exchange volatility? These are things you start looking at this stage. So still on personalities, you are looking at the social factors because they are demographic considerations, the beliefs of the people, the customs and traditions, their cultural values would have a role to play. So you want to know, do they believe in being gainfully employed? Are they naturally lazy people? These are things you're going to look at when going on, with what the problem really is, problem identification. Then the T, also technological factors. You want to look at the level of IT infrastructure. You don't want to profile a solution or come with a policy that your infrastructural facility cannot support. You want to look at the level of IT infrastructure. You want to look at the authentication of your processes. You want to look at issues like cyber security issues. So these are things, because if you are going to come with a policy that will require automation processes, you better check out what the problem is. So level of employment, is it because does it have a direct relationship with a level of IT infrastructure? These are things we want to look at in actually assessing, capturing adequately what the problem is. We also have the E, that's environmental factor. Definitely we have issues like the carbon footprint, we have the E issues like climate change impact, and also the L, we have the legal factors. Regulations, you want to look at regulations, you want to look at issues about licenses and permits. So thus, this PESU framework helps in capturing adequately the relevance, the effect, the impact of the external environment on a particular issue prevalent in the economy. And when you can do this adequately, it also helps you to articulate what the risk elements are. It helps you to capture. So when you can capture what the risk elements are, you are going to look at it properly, holistic approach to problem identification, which is the first stage of the public policy formulation. Detailed problem identification is important because at this stage you are already articulating what the potential bottlenecks would be, what the challenges as regards the policy you want to formulate would be, because at this stage you're already envisaging, you're articulating, you are projecting already. If it's done properly at this stage, when you get to the second phase, which is the policy formulation stage, it makes it less cumbersome. So I would like to talk a bit about the factors influencing the identification of policy challenges and their incorporation into the public agenda. You want to come up with a public policy, there are factors that will influence how you identify what the policy challenges would be so that you can incorporate that into your public policy, that is the public agenda. And I love the factors that have been identified by the OECD, that is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The OECD is an international organization, is a unique forum. They have 38 members, okay? You're talking about government of 38 countries collaborating together to develop policy standards to promote sustainable economic growth, okay? So they came up with this. In fact, they used to have 37, but the latest member was Costa Rica as the 38th member. We have the likes of Australia, Belgium, Canada, Colombia as members of the OECD. So they came up with, some factors that would influence the identification of policy challenges. It's important that you must be able to identify what those policy challenges would be, and there are factors, that would influence how you identify these policy challenges. Because once you can identify, articulate properly, it helps at the second stage of formulating effective policies. So the first factor that was identified was the capacity of representative institutions, that is the political parties, the trade unions or trade associations, to articulate the challenge. The capacity of representative institutions. Now, when we talk about policy formulations, we talk about the time when you're going to involve the stakeholders. Okay? So even when you involve stakeholders, the ability to be able to articulate what the challenge is or what the challenges are would affect, identification of policy challenges. So it means that your ability of your people to know how to identify these challenges is crucial. That is why we talk about deploying the tools. We talk about the personal analysis, so it becomes easier for the people to look at the political factors, economic factors, socio-cultural factors, technological factors, legal factors that could influence what are the challenges that it could pose to the policy. So it means that your representatives in an economy must be properly trained to be able to articulate. That's why we talk about strategic planning skills. Okay, now you could ask me, does it mean everyone has to have it? Okay, not everyone, but anyone involved in policy formulation must have that skill. Must have the skill to be strategic, risk management skills, to be able to articulate appropriately what the challenges are or what challenges would be, because there's a difference between what the challenges are presently and your ability to articulate what the challenges will be in the future. Okay, so you can see that one factor that will influence adequately identifying policy challenges and incorporating in your policy, your public agenda, lies a lot on your capacity, the mental capacity, the right exposure, the capacity of representative institutions to be able to articulate the challenge. I'm sure I will try and see in further other episodes where I can talk about, break down the skill set needed for policy formulation, because these are skill sets you are going to deploy. You cannot give what you don't have. If you cannot properly articulate what the challenge is, then how can you provide adequate solution? So it means that whatever policy will be coming up will be dependent on the ability of those identifying the problem. Sometimes, as citizens, we see some policy and we are saying, who is bringing up these policies? Why this policy is not going to solve this problem? This policy is going to even aggravate the problem. It goes back to the identification stage. So it goes back to the capacity of the representative institutions. Okay, how well can they articulate these challenges? Like I told you, the first stage is capturing adequately what the issues, what the problems, what the challenges are in an economy. So we are going to be dependent on the ability, capacity of those representing us in capturing what the challenges. The second factor speaks to availability of robust data and evidence that would enable the government confirm that the issue is real and that it is up to the government to address it. So the second factor is talking about availability of robust data. So it means there must be evidence. So it's one of the factors, again, that affects, identification of policy challenges. If people tell us that what we are experiencing, this challenge, is as a result of tax issues, there must be data to back it up. If we are coming up to say the problem we are experiencing in an environment is as an economy, is as a result of environmental issues, carbon emission, we need to back it up with data. So it must be data driven. So, even policy makers, we need to get adequate data. So if we do not give us adequate data, or the ability to get adequate data is undermined, definitely you cannot make the right decisions. You cannot profile or formulate and have the right laws and regulations. It's not going to solve the articulated challenges. It's not going to solve the problem in the society. If you're not careful, it's going to create more problems. So the factor of ability of robust data and evidence. We talk about evidence-driven data. We talk about taking informed decision. So when you keep complaining that death rate is on the rise, unemployment rate is on the rise, we need to collate data that will speak to that. If you want to tell me that the tax multiplicity is a problem for high level of unemployment rate, then let me see. We should have data to it. It's a factor. Data, evidence, it cannot be overflowed. That's when government, this is real, this is an issue that should be addressed. But outside of that, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to articulate the policy challenges, and it's going to be difficult incorporating that into the laws, regulations, policies that will be formulated. And remember, policies are not formulated in isolation. They're actually enacted, they're formulated to solve specific societal problems or challenges. If you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining. The program is Policy Formulation and Economic Development on Amorgate Radio Communication. Right now, we are discussing the factors pointed out by OECD as factors influencing the identification of policy challenges and their incorporation into the public agenda. Okay, we have mentioned two factors. We talked about the capacity of representative institutions to articulate properly, adequately what the challenge or challenges are. The second we mentioned is the availability of robust data and evidence to enable the government confirm that the issue is real. So it's dependent, that will affect, and it will be up to the government to address it. But it has to be data driven. So I'm going on to mention the third factor. And the third factor, according to OECD, is the role of the media in translating and communicating the challenge in a way that would resonate with citizens. Remember that we're still talking about the first stage of public policy formulation, and that is problem identification. So when you identify the problem, you are going to be able to research deeper, assess, the depth of the problem before we can go on to the third stage of policy formulation. Okay, the second stage of policy, which is the policy formulation stage. So the role of media in translating and communicating the challenge in a way that it would resonate with citizens is important. You have to I talk a lot at Amorgate about the role of strategic communication. You need to communicate strategically. It must be clear. They must understand. And again, you can't take away the role of empathy. You must people want to know why they want to be a part, of solving a challenge. So if I know what is in need for me, if I'm presently employed, and you want to get what the issues are for me as a citizen, you must communicate it in a way to show that, look, the unemployment rate is at 25-30%, but it's likely, and you can look at the sectorial, I'm looking at it sectorally. If where I'm working right now is in the banking sector, and the unemployment rate has not hit the banking sector, and you're coming up to say, okay, now the unemployment is 25-30% right now, it has hit the manufacturing sector, it has hit the energy sector, but it's likely to come into these other sectors that will not be affected in the next 24 to 48 months if we do not articulate, if we do not solve the problem right now. Now, because I know that it has not come right now, but you're already projecting and you're seeing it that it's likely to come to my industry. And I'm seeing the bigger picture that if it's not affecting me directly, it's going to affect me indirectly. So strategic communication, the media has a role to play in order to articulate what the challenges are, get the buy-in of your people, because the truth is, you're going to come up with policies that might affect them. So if you're going to come up with policy at the policy formulation stage, I have to be part of knowing what the challenges are. So if we can communicate through our media channels that this is what it is, the unemployment rate is high, or you're even communicating environmental hazard, or even talking about international international trade issues, or even sectoral imbalance. Talking about food security issue, we have the issue of food security issue biting hard in developing nations, and we have it in Nigeria is high. So everyone wants to know what is the way out. So the best time to formulate policies, is eating us hard. So it is the time for the media to project it in a way that will resonate with citizens, that they can see that look, they have a role to play in providing solutions to it, because whatever policy you are going to come up with is likely to affect citizens. So the best time to do it, the media should not add more to the problem with the way they project what the challenges are. But I say that communicating to your citizens, carrying them along, the media has a major role to play, so that they know we are in it together. If I see that you are serious about it and you are carrying us along, so at the stage of policy formulation, they have that insight. They will also even want to, also be part. If they have to pay a price, the populace will be ready to pay that price. But it depends on how you communicate the challenge to them, and that lies heavily on our media, personnel, media outfits, media stations. The fourth factor is effective stakeholders engagement capacity. That lies a lot on the ability of policymakers, the government, to be able to, engage actively, identify relevant stakeholders and engage actively with them. You need to, sustain dialogue with relevant civil society, relevant institutions, your citizens. You need to be able to engage with them on the issue so that you can adequately know how to address it successfully. I've mentioned it earlier about the role of the media. The media is also a stakeholder in this process. The role of your civil societies, the role of the captains in the industry of your country. You need to identify who the stakeholders are. You need to understand what their varying interests are. You need to understand what their fears would be, because you don't want to engage them. And when they have their fears and you're not articulating and looking at how to allay those fears, definitely you're not going to get their buy-in. You're not going to get the best from them. Now remember that it's about problem solving. When you come up with policies, it's either you are solving a challenge, a problem in the economy, or you are projecting yourself, strategically, so that you can take on opportunities in the future, both present and future opportunities. So if the case is the case of the former, where there are issues, where there are challenges in the economy, you want to be able to, engage them in a way that I call it the white film principle. They see what is in it for them. So from that angle, we can iron it out, we can engage, you can brainstorm, and you'll be surprised that all of these solutions, all of the solutions to the problem largely will not even come from a policymaker. You need to get the input of your people. You are not doing it for them, you need to do it with them. So sometimes they even know what the issues are. That's what I talk about, data collation, going back there to get their buy-in, get their mind, get what the real challenges are, digging deep. So effective stakeholders engagement is one factor that will actually determine if we are incorporating accurately what the policy challenges would be, accurately what the problems are. So you need to map out effective stakeholders engagement strategies as policymakers. Effective stakeholders engagement strategy must be clearly mapped out. That's when you can get their buy-in, you can get their feelers, you can get what the real issues are. Yeah, at Amogate, we have employed this a lot. When we do public sector reforms, sometimes what those issues will not be from top management. It's not going to be from the top officers. Sometimes it comes from mid-level management, and you get what the real issues are. So how much more, as policymakers. So the OECD is right. Effective stakeholders engagement capacity is very important. So it means that if your level of engagement, stakeholders engagement capacity is very low, already you are speaking to low level of effective policy formulation. Okay, so and that's going to affect even achieving set objective, even achieving an overall macroeconomic objective. When talking about balance of payment equilibrium, when talking about stable prices, economic growth, not alone talking about economic development and other issues that relate to the standard of living, the quality of life of your citizens as a nation. Okay, the last but not the least factor that we're speaking on today is the capacity of the government to anticipate challenges. You need to anticipate what the challenges will be adequately. That's why we talk about the root cause, we talk about the RCA, we talk about using your change analysis, event analysis, your PESO. Once you have done this adequately, it helps. So your capacity to anticipate challenges is very important. And there are various ways. Okay, you need strategic foresight. You need to look at it strategically, forecasting. If you cannot forecast well, and when you are forecasting, you are looking at trends, past trends, you're anticipating what it will be in the future. You need foresight. It's important. That's why we say that even every leader must be strategic, must be long-term driven, let alone policy makers, let alone those that are going to be involved in policy making. It's important. You'll be able to, your strategic foresight is very key. You talk about horizontal scanning, and you cannot just do this alone. You are going to understand that you need the civil society, you need your stakeholders, but your capacity to anticipate challenges as a government is very important. We talked about risk analysis. You look at the systematic risk, the unsystematic risk. You have to foresight what it will be. You need to, like I said, when you have done your stakeholders, identifying your stakeholders, identifying their interest. Okay, so you look at their interest, both present and what their future interest could be, what the change could be, what's happened globally. Okay, not just your continent, what's happening in other continents, okay? What's happening globally in your continent? What do you think is not happening in your continent right now? What will the change be? These are things that you could put on our toes. That's why we say that even when you have policies that are working right now, you need to even find out, are these policies going to work in the next 10, 15 years from now? Okay, we used to say back in those days that the long term will be 20 years. No, long term sometimes will be as short as 5, 10 years. So it's in things are evolving, things are changing. So it's important, it's necessary. I even say that it's a survival instinct, okay? For your survival as an economy, you need to be able to anticipate challenges that could happen globally, that's likely to happen, in your continent, and also that would happen in your economy across various sectors. I'll draw the curtain here. A big thank you to you all for staying tuned to the end of today's episode. If you have any comment, feedback, questions for us, you can send a mail to contact@amorgate.org. Remember, at Amorgate, for your consulting, communication needs, we have you covered. And you can check us up on our social media handles, LinkedIn page, Amorgate, Facebook, Amorgate, Instagram, Amorgate. And also remember that we have other programs that runs Monday through Fridays. Very interesting program, insightful, expository. Monday, same time, 5 p.m. WAT. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This is my program too. 5 p.m. WAT. Before I go, I will leave us with the words of Duke Ellington, which says, a problem is a chance for you to do your best. Okay? So how do you want to put in your best, show your best, give in your best if there's no problem? So instead of seeing it as a problem, we should see it as a challenge that can be tackled, that will bring out our best abilities in managing people, resources, our talents, to the table. Okay, thank you so much. I remain Titulola Ogunshono. Hope you join us same time next Friday, 5 p.m. WAT on Amorgate Radio Communication. I'm saying bye from here.